A few months ago, I had a quick drive of the BYD Seal U DM-i, and upon first impressions, I was actually left pretty impressed by this plug-in hybrid SUV. But now that I've got it in for review, I can really put it through its paces and see if it's actually worth its asking price. And indeed, the video will be covered in such a format, and we'll be covering every single aspect about the vehicle so you can make your own informed purchasing decision. Now, to kick things off, we have to talk, of course, about its asking price, which is actually pretty alluring and makes it compete with some of the other hybrid and affordable SUVs out there on the market. Now, at the time of filming and in the UK, it comes with three trims. The Boost model, which we have on review, comes in at £33,000. The Comfort trim, which gives you slightly bigger battery pack and therefore better electric range, comes in at £35,000, while the Design trim has got an all-wheel drive configuration up from a front-wheel drive configuration of the other trims, and that comes in at £40,000. Now, elsewhere, I should point out that the vehicle comes with a 6-year warranty, or 94,000 miles, whichever comes first. And then the battery and the motor have got an 8-year warranty with a mileage limit of 125,000 and 94,000 miles respectively. So without further ado, let's actually see if this vehicle is actually worth its price tag and how it performs across the board. So to kick things off, we have to talk about fuel efficiency, because that is arguably the most important factor when you're looking at a hybrid vehicle. As I did mention, we are driving the Boost model, which has got a 18.3 kilowatt hour capacity and a 50-mile EV range. Now, combined with the 60-litre fuel tank, that gives you 671 miles of total driving range, at least according to the manufacturer. Now, in the Comfort trim, you have got a larger 26.6 kilowatt hour battery pack, or 77 miles of EV range, or a whopping 699 miles of driving range. Now, oddly, in the Design trim, the battery pack goes back to what you'd find in the Boost model, in other words, 18.3 kilowatt hour, and you have also got a slightly lower WLTP claim of 43 miles. This is probably due to the secondary motor. Now, combined with the fuel tank, that will give you roughly 540 miles of driving range. Now, no matter which trim level you go for, you will find that the vehicle operates in a similar fashion. In other words, the petrol engine can drive the front wheels, or the all-wheel drive system, or can simultaneously work with the electric motor and the battery pack in order to dispatch power. So it very much depends in terms of the usage scenario, and the vehicle itself determines what is best for you in order to maximize on efficiency. Now, from my own mixed driving test, I netted between 40 to 45 mpg, which is actually quite similar to what the manufacturer is actually claiming. Now, this is actually a little bit lower than what you'll find out there on the market. In other words, the Seal U DM-i doesn't exactly do all that well when it comes to fuel efficiency, but for a vehicle of its class and in terms of its price tag, it's actually relatively acceptable. For example, it does better than the likes of an Audi Q3 TFSIe, and is similar to the likes of an MG HS plug-in hybrid. Of course, if you have got the means of regularly plugging it in, that MPG figure will climb pretty high. In other words, you'll be able to achieve potentially 999 miles per gallon, because you're effectively not having to rely on any of the petrol portion. It's worth pointing out over here that in terms of my EV range, I netted roughly 40 miles at least in the Boost model. So pretty impressive, but somewhat on par with some of its competitors. Now, on the subject of efficiency, I should also point out that you have got regenerative braking, and in fact you've got two modes that you can select via the infotainment system, which is certainly appreciated and somewhat of a novelty when it comes to the hybrid market. Now, this means that when you're lifting off the accelerator pedal, the vehicle is harvesting energy back into the battery pack and therefore trying to maximize yet again on efficiency. Useful, for example, when you're doing in-town driving. Now, when it comes to charging the vehicle, it's also similarly impressive, because not only have you got an 11 kilowatt onboard charger, which therefore means that you can benefit from a 3-phase power input, for example, higher rated chargers that you'd find on the public roads, or for example, if you have the ability of having one installed at home, but you've also got a DC input as well, although this is actually limited to only 18 kilowatts, so therefore it's not exactly giving you much higher rates. Nonetheless, over here, via the 11 kilowatt onboard charger, you can go from 15 to 100% in 2 hours, while via the DC input, you can go from 30 to 80% in just 35 minutes. Now, to add the cherry on top, you've also got vehicle-to-load charging. And for those who are not aware, it means that you can effectively discharge the battery pack and charge, for example, another vehicle, or, for example, power a household appliance, for example, a coffee machine, a kettle, or let's say a set of lights. Very useful when it comes to camping. Now, for those people who are aware, you will be able to find this feature in some fully electric vehicles, but as far as I'm aware, it's the very first that I've come across in a hybrid vehicle. So aside from efficiency, what about when it comes to performance? Well, here in the Boost and Comfort trims, you have got a front-wheel drive configuration, and combining the 1.5 litre petrol engine with the battery pack and a singular motor, it outputs 160 kilowatts of power, or 214 horsepower, and 300 newton meters of torque. It's claimed to go from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 8.9 seconds and has got a top speed of 106 miles an hour. Now, in the design trim, you've got an all-wheel drive configuration. That is thanks to the fact that you've got two electric motors, one at the front and one at the back. These combine with the 1.5 litre petrol engine to output 238 kilowatts of power, or 319 horsepower, and 550 newton meters of torque. There's a claim 0 to 60 mile an hour time of just 5.9 seconds, and there's also a top speed of 112 miles an hour. Now, I actually had the Boost trim tested using Racelogic's Performance Box Touch from 0 to 20 miles an hour in 2.25 seconds, 0 to 30 miles an hour in 3.4 seconds, 0 to 60 miles an hour in 7.96 seconds, therefore faster than the manufacturer's claim, and 50 to 70 miles an hour in 4.28 seconds. I also recorded a peak acceleration of 0.45 G. Now, it's worth pointing out over here that all the vehicles have got the same single-speed transmission, and therefore means that you can hear the vehicle really ramping up, almost like a CVT transmission when you put your foot down to the metal. For example, if you're going to be doing an overtake maneuver from 50 to 70 miles an hour on the motorway, the vehicle does become actually pretty loud and rampant. Nonetheless, the transition between petrol and electric power is absolutely seamless. You won't be able to hear or indeed feel it. So therefore, it's testament to how BYD have actually set up the vehicle, making it feel actually pretty comfortable to drive. Now, aside from gunning it in a straight line, what about when it comes to its handling characteristics? Well, it's no surprise to learn over here that it hasn't got the best sort of performance characteristics. The driver's input feels pretty poor, so therefore you don't have that one-to-one connection with the front axle. The steering wheel feels a little bit numb, even in terms of its sport mode preset, and there's quite a bit of body lean if you're going to be really chugging around winding country routes. However, where it really counts is when it comes to the overall driving comfort. And here at the front, you've got a MacPherson setup, while at the rear, you've got a multi-link setup. And the combination of all of this means that it's actually pretty pleasurable to drive in and around town. Therefore, meaning that the suspension system does soak up a lot of those anomalies, those speed bumps, and those potholes. Now, make no mistake, it's not going to compete with more expensive configurations out there, for example, adaptive systems, because here the suspension system that's found on the BYD Seal U DM-i does suffer from being a little bit wobbly and a little bit uneven when you're going to be going around more challenging terrain. Again, given the overall price tag of this, I don't think most people will complain, but it's just something I thought I should highlight in my review. Now, another important factor when it comes to the overall driving comfort is cabin noise, and unfortunately over here the BYD Seal U DM-i does fall short a little bit. See here, there's a little bit of road noise that can be heard while traversing at lower speed, and there can be a little bit of low-end resonance as well when you're going on uneven terrain. In fact, if you want a bit more of an extra breakdown of this, including in-cabin measurements, make sure you check out my detailed audio review that can be found down the description below or in the pinned comments. Now, past this, however, the overall seating comfort is absolutely fantastic. Now, at the front of the cabin, you have got electronically operated seats, and there's 8-way controls for the driver and 4-way controls for the passenger, and heated and ventilated functions as well. In case you're wondering, no, this actually comes fitted as standard, and you don't have to go for an option, which is absolutely fantastic to see, because the vast majority of its competitors do actually offer this in terms of an additional pack or indeed an option. Now, you have also got a heated steering wheel that comes fitted as standard across the entire trim range. Now, at the rear of the cabin, you've also got fantastic headroom and legroom. This is in part thanks to the fact that the manufacturer has optimized the rear footwell design by keeping it completely flat, like you'd find in a fully electric vehicle, but is a little bit of a novelty in a hybrid vehicle. So yet again, BYD have kind of outdone themselves. You've also got reclining rear seats, which just adds to the overall comfort of the rear seats. Now the seats themselves are all very accommodating and also comfortable, and I had no issues whatsoever when it came to my own driving tests. Aside from all of this, I would like to point out that the rear doors have got a nice wide opening, therefore making it very easy to get in and out a child seat. Furthermore, the ISOFIX points are very easily found. Elsewhere, the Boost and Design trims have got a panoramic roof with an electronically controlled sunshade, which is very much appreciated for both those hotter days where you've got the sunshade that comes and kicks in, or of course those colder days with limited amount of light, and therefore means that that panoramic roof does really draw in extra light within the cabin and gives you that extra sense of spaciousness. Now, another thing which I quite like is the overall interior design. Sure enough, it's not going to compete with much more premium alternatives, but given its overall price point, it certainly is a step up over some of its key competitors. You've got a glossy black finish towards the dashboard, which gives it a sense of snazzy style. Then you've got an ambient lighting system which can be customized, and then you've got nice sort of stitching and upholstery work, all of which actually does look and feel the part. Furthermore, you have got a good use of technology as well. You've got a rotatable 15.6-inch infotainment system, which can be handy, for example, if you want to be consuming media versus, for example, if you want to use it for navigation. Or, of course, you can just have it fixed in a portrait or landscape format, depending in terms of your own preferences. Furthermore, the infotainment system is very fluid and intuitively laid out, and it also seems to have addressed one of my key points that I made before of other BYD vehicles, where the screen itself is actually properly linked with the lighting system. So now it does actually get pretty bright and also pretty dim where it needs to be. There's also support for wireless and wired Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, both of which are very much appreciated, as it allows you to use some of your favorite apps, or for example, stream some music at a much more higher fidelity, of course, if you have music that is stored on your phone. Now, as an extension to this, you've also got a customizable, fully digitalized 12.3-inch instrument cluster. This will give you all the key driving information, for example, your speedometer, and also some of the driver assistance systems that are in operation. Now, what I also like is the fact that a head-up display comes featured as standard across the entire trim range. Yes, indeed, this is a feature that you'd normally come to expect in much more premium alternatives, but BYD have actually included this as a complete standard. Now, to further emphasize my point, the manufacturers also included a pretty punchy 10-speaker Infinity Harman Kardon audio system, which includes a subwoofer. So yes, unlike much more expensive alternatives out there on the market, you don't have to go for a pack or an option. BYD have actually thought this through. And as somewhat of an audiophile, I really do appreciate that there is a pretty lively audio system within the BYD Seal U DM-i. Now, it's not exactly going to excel across the sound frequency range, but will leave a lot of consumers pretty excited. In fact, if you want a detailed breakdown of the audio system itself, make sure you check out my detailed audio review that can be found up on your pop-up banner, or by following the links down in the description below or the pinned comments. Now, technology isn't the only impressive trait of the vehicle, because here, when it comes to storage capacity, it's actually pretty good. At the front, you have got the glove box, which has been actually optimized for right-hand drive vehicles. Then you've also got a small little sunglass holder towards the top, and a small little compartment that can be found for the driver, useful, for example, if you want to place your keys. Now, at the center console, you have got two 15-watt wireless charging bays, and then further down, you have got two cup holders, and then you've got a nice little area that is found underneath the center armrest compartment. You've then also got an open area that's found underneath the center console, where you'll also find two USB Type-C ports, a micro SD card slot, and also a 12-volt socket. Now, the USB Type-C ports are actually pretty impressive, because one of them will deliver 18 watts of power, while the other a whopping 60 watts of power. You'll also find a further two USB Type-C ports at the rear of the center console, each of which delivering 18 watts of power, therefore allowing for pretty fast charging even for your rear occupants. Now, elsewhere, I should also mention that the door bins are pretty large at the front, although it's a shame that they're not being lined in any sort of fabric. And the same could be said about the rear two, which are unsurprisingly a little bit more limited. Then you've got a pull-down armrest compartment, which reveals two cup holders. And then you've also got a small little storage bay at the rear of the center console. Now, better still, you've got a very usable boot capacity with 425 litres to play around with, or 1,440 litres if you drop down the seats. Sure enough, it's not exactly got class-leading figures, but for the vast majority of consumers, you'll be able to do your weekly shops and also take larger luggage without any sort of issues. I also love the fact that it's actually very practical, with a very high opening hatchback design with an electric tailgate that comes fitted as standard across the entire trim range. You've also got 60/40 rear split folding seats, a flat loading bay, and a boot floor which can be actually adjusted. You've got a small little underfloor compartment which will suffice for taking, for example, your tyre repair kit or even the 3-pin charging cable setup. And then you've also got a removable and retractable boot load cover. Truthfully, over here, BYD have really thought it through, and therefore means that the overall storage capacity of the Seal U DM-i is actually pretty impressive. Similarly, I really do love what BYD have achieved with the overall exterior design. And sure, looks are somewhat subjective, but in this respect, it feels quite modern and in line with the rest of the manufacturer's fleet. At the front, you've got a kind of bubble-shaped look with these nice little headlights. Towards the side, you have got 19-inch alloys that come fitted as standard and a slightly raised profile. And towards the rear, you've got a really nice look, thanks to the fact that you have got the tail light that stretches the entire width of the vehicle. Now, in terms of the colour options, grey comes as standard. However, if you do spend an additional £1,100, you can go for a blue, white or black finish instead. So what about when it comes to safety? Well, here the regular BYD Seal U was tested by Euro NCAP and awarded the full 5 out of 5 stars. It scored 90% in adult occupancy, 86% in child occupancy and 77% in its safety assist scores. Now, furthermore, the driver assistance systems are absolutely fantastic. Not only have you got a plethora of them that come included as standard across the entire trim range, but they also do work a treat. Here you've got adaptive cruise control and intelligent cruise control, which actually do work very well of keeping you at a safe distance from the leading vehicle and not feeling too jerky either. You've got lane keep assistance, lane departure warning and lane departure assistance, and even emergency lane keeping assist, lane change assist, blind spot detection, intelligent speed limit control, traffic sign recognition, fatigue management system, predictive collision warning, forward and rear collision warning, door opening warning, and automatic emergency braking. Yes, indeed, BYD have not cheaped out when it comes to the driver assistance systems, and it's absolutely fantastic to see a whole host of them built in. It's worth pointing out that some of these systems will come enabled every single time you power on the vehicle, but you'll have to navigate via the infotainment system in order to disable them. Furthermore, I absolutely love the fact that the manufacturers included front and rear parking sensors, a high-resolution 360-degree camera-based system, and front and rear cross-traffic alert. All of these that come fitted as standard is certainly appreciated because a lot of its competitors, including more expensive alternatives, ask you to go for an option or a pack. So good job for BYD for actually showing them up. Now, in terms of visibility, I've got no issues whatsoever towards the front and the side because you've got nice wide openings and you've got that blind spot monitoring system that gives you extra peace of mind, for example, when you're on the motorway. However, at the rear, it's a little bit limited due to the design of the vehicle, even if you have got a small little rear wiper. Thankfully, over here, the camera-based system and the parking sensors give you extra peace of mind when it comes to reversing. Although it would have been great to see a washer jet system also included within all the cameras, because if you're going to be traversing on muddier terrain, the cameras do actually get blocked up pretty quickly. But given the overall price tag of the vehicle, I can't complain all that much. So with all that in mind, it brings us on to our verdict, the BYD Seal U DM-i, and I really do think they should have come up with a little bit more of a memorable name. But nonetheless, the vehicle itself is actually very good. First off, you do consider its overall price tag, it's actually offering you plenty of features that come as standard. Better still, it's actually very comfortable to drive, very spacious, both at the front and at the rear of the cabin. You've got a plethora of driver assistance systems and also good use of technology within the cabin and also a good boot capacity. Given all of this, it's very easy to see ourselves recommending it, and as such, it gets our Best Buy award. Of course, do consider some of the limitations that we've highlighted throughout this review. For example, the overall performance in terms of the overall driver's input and also the raw straight line speed, and also, of course, the fuel efficiency, which might be of more importance for those people looking at a hybrid SUV. Nonetheless, it's still a great alternative, but we'd be curious to know what you would pick down in the comment section below. And if you have enjoyed this detailed independent review, definitely do consider dropping a like, subscribing and hitting that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. As such, I've been Chris from TotallyEV, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves and goodbye.